Hey guys, welcome to Office Hours with Bob Ross, episode number 37. It's been a little while since I've recorded a podcast, and the reason being really is because been trying to get my grounding and shift into the new position, the new role as a teacher at a high school, something different, a new experience. So really trying to get a feel for that, really trying to figure out my schedule, work out, what I'm trying to do still outside of just teaching. And it's been a little bit of a challenge. So bear with me on that. It's still a work in progress. But for today, the topic I want to discuss is kind of a tough one. At least for me, it feels a little bit tough. Because being a musician that really is or has and continues to push in the jazz genre of music, it is very frustrating to hear when someone refers to the music as elevator music. So what I'm trying to figure out is how to get beyond that and not be too uptight when I hear anyone use the term elevator music to describe jazz. An opportunity to maybe push beyond this conception of elevator music and turn it into a chance to communicate what this art form is. However, I think that it's difficult to do that because the music itself, and you've heard others say it, and I've also used this same sort of comparison. This music is just like many other genres too, it is a language. And if you don't understand what's involved in that language, it's really easy to just shut down, to not listen. And when you hear certain components of what jazz is, the instrumentation, maybe a groove or a certain style that seems to elicit elevator music, then go ahead to call it elevator music. Now, of course, any of us that are involved in the genre of jazz, if you've studied it, if you perform it, play it, compose in it, if maybe you've studied it to some extent and you have some sort of an understanding of the music, then you may see where the issue comes into play and how, depending, I guess, on what the average listener would consider to be elevator music, it can be, in some respects, like a slam or offensive, not offensive where it's going to, it's not my feelings are hurt, but it's to take the music and just throw that label on and not to acknowledge what it is and the complexity in the music and the beauty in the music. It's a disservice to the music. Jazz music is a culmination of many different voices over the years, of different styles coming into play over the years, cultures coming into play. It's not just something that you hear in an elevator and just label it like that and toss it to the side. There's a lot to the music. And if you take the time to sit with it, listen to it, try to listen to basic things within the music, like the instrumentation, the rhythms, what's the melody in this tune? Is this an opportunity now where there's improvisation taking place? Do you hear how the one instrument is communicating with this other instrument, how they're feeding off of each other? They're having a conversation with each other. It's not just a background music. It's not just smooth jazz or elevator music. We can't take this music and just toss it to the side like that. Now the question is, what do you then do? Because it's great, we can say, okay, well, this is unfortunate. It's being called elevator music, smooth jazz, and whatever other title comes into play. Some people find it boring, and that's fine to make the acknowledgement. But then from there, we have to push ourselves to the next step in figuring out a way to open up people's minds to what this music is. And there may be different ways to do that. I don't think that there's a clear, concise answer to how to remedy this lack of understanding of the music, other than if you would just make people aware of what the music is by having them actually listen to it. You're not going to put on jazz music for, anybody. You just say here to the family that might like country music, rock music, maybe they like rap, and just say, here's some jazz, go listen to it. It's not going to work that way. The opportunity, at least for me, that I see in a position that I'm in, I do have a jazz band class, and I do bring up elements of jazz in other classes, whether it's in music appreciation or guitar classes that I teach. Sometimes mention it in the rock bands as well. These opportunities are times to maybe pave the way for the generations that are in the future coming up will then take the influence that this generation now, what they're hearing, what they're learning, they will then listen to it in the homes, and then it's something that their family members, children will listen to and feel inspired by it. I mean, if you listen to the stories of those people that are involved in music, whether they went into rock or maybe they did go into jazz, maybe they went to another style, something that was common is that they heard music in their homes. They heard the popular music of the time, but also maybe their families were involved in the jazz genre. Maybe they had family members that were musicians, or they had family members that really enjoyed that music. I understand that jazz is not the popular music of our time. I get it. But I think that we can push to maybe elevate it and bring it out of the realm of, well, that's just elevator music or muzak, smooth jazz. Because there's more to it. Just like in the other styles of music, the musicians that are creating this music today, those in the past and those today, they were also putting in their experiences and their feelings and trying to encapsulate that in the music that they were creating or currently they're creating now. So to minimize it and just say that it's just a background music doesn't do it justice. So I feel that maybe over time, if we continue to bring this music about and not just turn on whatever's on the radio, that we try to bring this music back in and elevate it to a level of not just passive listening, but more in-depth listening to understand what it is that is trying to be communicated or is being communicated in the music of jazz. Again, this is not the first time, and not only for me, but for anybody that's in jazz, where maybe you put on something that you listen to and you think, man, this sounds great. I want to share this with others. And you turn it on and they hear it and their response is, oh, okay, cool, smooth jazz, elevator music. And then that, depending, I guess, on the type of person you are, could just end the conversation there, and then you turn it off and you're like, oh, well, maybe it is just elevator music. But I would like to definitely argue that it's much more than that. So maybe over time we can bring the music back. I know it's not going to be the pop music, at least not anytime soon. It doesn't seem like. But let's make a defense for the art of jazz. It is an art music. There's a lot of culture in the music. There's a lot of voices in the music of jazz. And we can't just let it die off like that and just throw that label of just background music. Anyways, guys, it's not meant as a rant type thing that I'm doing here. I know that's a common thing that you see is rant time or alert. Here comes a rant. It's not a rant. It's just an observation. I want to thank you for listening. Just want to remind you also that I do have lessons and courses available on musiclessons.com/Bob Ross. Check those out. I have some lessons and courses on intervallic chords, navigating the changes, analysis of some tunes. So if you want to check that out, support me through the lessons and courses that I put out. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Office Hours with Bob Ross.